You've prayed about it more times than you can count. Not casual prayers, real ones, the kind where you meant it, where you laid it down completely, where you walked away from that prayer feeling like something had actually shifted. And for a while, maybe it had. You went days without it, weeks sometimes, and you thought, this is it. This is the version of me that's on the other side of this thing. And then it came back, not dramatically, quietly, the way familiar things return. And you did it again. The same thing you prayed away. The same thought you declared you'd left behind. The same pattern you told yourself, and maybe told someone else, was part of your old life. And the shame of that moment, the specific shame of doing the thing again after everything you said and believed and asked God to remove. That shame is its own category. It's not just the guilt of the action. It's the guilt of the gap between the person you present to the world, the one who is further along, more healed, more transformed, and the person who just did the thing again. And the gap has been there for a long time, quietly, consistently, and nobody knows, because you presented the version that was true on the good days. And the good days became the story everyone knows. And the private version keeps returning to the thing you prayed away. And you're exhausted from carrying both. And this video is for the person carrying both. Here's what makes it harder than a simple struggle. You know better. That's the part that produces the specific shame of this particular thing. Not ignorance, not weakness in the ordinary sense. You have the theology. You have the tools. You have the community, or at least the appearance of community, and the prayer life and the history with God. You know what you're supposed to do with this. You've been told. You've taught others. And you still do the thing. And that gap between knowing and doing, between who you are in front of people and who you are in private, doesn't resolve with more information. You have information. It doesn't resolve with more prayer in the standard form. You've prayed, and it's still there, which means something about the way you've been approaching this hasn't been reaching the place where it actually lives. And the shame compounds each time. Not just the shame of the action, the shame of being someone who should be past this by now, who everyone around them thinks is done with it, and isn't. Here's what makes it harder than a simple struggle. You know better. That's the part that produces the specific shame of this particular thing. Not ignorance, not weakness in the ordinary sense. You have the theology. You have the tools. You have the community, or at least the appearance of community, and the prayer life and the history with God. You know what you're supposed to do with this. You've been told. You've taught others. And you still do the thing. And that gap between knowing and doing, between who you are in front of people and who you are in private, doesn't resolve with more information. You have information. It doesn't resolve with more prayer in the standard form. You've prayed, and it's still there, which means something about the way you've been approaching this hasn't been reaching the place where it actually lives. And the shame compounds each time. Not just the shame of the action, the shame of being someone who should be past this by now, who everyone around them thinks is done with it, and isn't. Here's something that almost never gets said clearly. Transformation is not linear. In the church's language about it, the testimonies of clean breaks, the before and afters, the stories of things that were prayed away and stayed away, creates an expectation that is not representative of how change actually works in most people. Most change is not a straight line from struggle to freedom. It's a spiral. You come back to the same thing at different levels of the spiral. And each time it looks like the same failure. But the context is different. The frequency is lower than it was. The grip is less than it was. The recovery time is shorter than it was. But you're not at the same point. You are at the same coordinates on a spiral that has been moving. People who have completely surrendered to a thing stop being bothered by it. The bothering is the sign of life. The return to prayer after failure is the sign of movement, not defeat. Formation, the long, unglamorous, non-linear kind that doesn't make good testimony material, but is actually how most people change. What if the thing that keeps returning isn't evidence of your failure? What if it's evidence of the depth of what God is working on? Because here's what surface-level transformation looks like. It addresses behavior. You stop doing the thing, and the root that produced it remains. And another expression of the same root emerges somewhere else. Because the behavior was always a symptom, and symptoms can be managed, but roots have to be reached. And reaching roots takes longer than managing symptoms. And the thing that keeps returning, the one you've been ashamed of for years, might be returning not because you're stuck, but because God is working at a depth that the surface-level prayers haven't reached yet. Not working slowly because He's limited. Working slowly because you can only receive what you're currently able to receive. And the receiving is a process, one that the continued returning is actually part of. Every time you bring this back to God, after the failure, after the shame, after the "I can't believe it did it again," you are participating in the process, not undermining it. The failure and the return are both part of the same movement. The movement towards something that hasn't fully arrived yet. And it is arriving, slower than you want, less visibly than you'd like, but arriving. Think about learning to walk, not as a concept, as a physical reality. A child learning to walk falls, repeatedly, without exception, and every fall looks from the outside like failure. But the fall is not failure. The fall is the process. Because the falling teaches the body something that staying still can't teach. It teaches balance through imbalance. It builds the muscle memory of correction through the experience of needing correction. And the child who falls and gets up is not failing at walking. They're learning it. The falling is the learning. And the child who falls the most in the early stages is often the one who walks most confidently later, because they built the correction mechanism more thoroughly than the one who was cautious. You have fallen at the same place more times than you want, and every fall that was followed by getting up added something to the formation, something that the staying down couldn't add. And the version of you that keeps getting up, that keeps returning to the prayer after the failure, that version is not a spiritual failure. That version is in the process of learning something that can only be learned by falling and getting up, repeatedly, at the same place, until the balance forms. Repeatedly, at the same place, until the balance forms. Paul wrote about a thorn in his flesh. He doesn't name it specifically, and theologians have debated it for centuries. But what Paul says about it is more important than what it was. He says he pleaded with God 3 times to take it away. Not once, 3 times, with the kind of asking that implies real desperation. And God's response was, "My grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness." Not, "I'll remove it when your faith is strong enough." Not, "Here's why you still have it. My grace is sufficient, and my power is made perfect in weakness." Which means the thorn wasn't evidence of Paul's spiritual deficiency. It was the specific condition in which God's power was being displayed. The thing Paul wanted removed was the thing through which something essential was being demonstrated. Not despite the weakness, through it. And Paul, who wrote more of the New Testament than anyone else, who planted churches across the known world, who described the most comprehensive theology of grace in human history, carried a thorn he never got rid of, and called himself the chief of sinners, and kept going, not past the weakness, through it. That's available to you. The grace that is sufficient for the thorn you haven't been able to remove. The power that is made perfect in the weakness you're still ashamed of. It's available. It's already here. So here's what I want to say to you about the thing you still do. You're not a fraud. You're not someone whose transformation isn't real because it isn't complete. You're not someone who fooled everyone into thinking they were further along than they are. You're someone in the middle of a process that takes longer than anyone tells you it takes. And the gap between who you present and who you are in private, that gap is not permanent. It's the current distance between where you are and where you're going. And the fact that it bothers you, the fact that the shame is still there, that you're still bringing it back, that you haven't made peace with the thing by deciding it doesn't matter, that is not weakness. That is the conscience that makes transformation possible. The thing that doesn't care is the thing that doesn't change. You care, which means you're still in it. And still in it means still moving. Even when the movement is invisible. Even when the return feels like starting over. Even when the shame says you should be past this by now. You're not past this. And you're not stuck. You're on the spiral. Moving through the same point at a different level than you were before. And the grace that met you the first time you brought this meets you again, every time you come back. Not reluctantly, not with diminishing patience, not with a record of how many times you've been back. The same grace. Sufficient. Every time. Still. Before you go, type these words in the comments. I'm still in process. And that is enough. Not as resignation, as the most honest and accurate statement about where real transformation actually lives. In the still in process. In the returning after the fall. In the bringing it back one more time. In the refusing to make peace with it by deciding it doesn't matter. That is not failure. That is faith. The most honest, least glamorous, most real kind.